What's up, Internet? I'm working on a 2012 Volvo S60 with a 2.5 liter inline 5-cylinder engine with just 108,000 miles. I bought this from a guy who was trying to flip it. He wanted to list it for a little less than $4,000. Told me that he was pulling in to do an oil change and the serpentine belt shredded itself. He thinks it got into the timing belt and threw the engine off time. So the engine ran for a few seconds when I got there, but it ran like garbage. So knowing that this was an interference engine, I did the only sensible thing and bought it for $1,000. It would have been a bit too much for it, but frankly, I loved the way the inside of this car looked with the peanut butter leather seats that I just couldn't say no. Since I knew the engine had timing issues, I bought the special timing tool, which, by the way, Amazon sells for much cheaper than the OEM version, and it works just as good as the original, I'm sure. Link in the description for the one I personally used. So after timing the engine with that tool, I knew I needed to find out if the valves got damaged since this is an interference engine. There are a few ways to test if your valves got bent during a timing failure like this. If you have a scope, you can take the spark plug out, look down the cylinder with the scope, and if you see marks on the cylinder that look like this, then valves have contacted the cylinder at some point during the engine's life. You can also do a leak down test with a special gadget and an air compressor. I didn't have either of those things available to me, so I went to AutoZone, rented a cylinder compression checker, and after timing the engine, because it only works after you time the engine, or a compression check would only really work after you time the engine. I tested all 5 cylinders for compression after I timed it. After the compression test, I'll put the results up here. Obviously, these are really bad. Note, again, the engine needs to be timed correctly for the compression test to mean anything. Now, I was curious about which valves got bent and where, so I did this test with a smoke machine, pretty much just for fun. Okay, so this is super rudimentary, if that's even a word. Smoke machine, filling up the first cylinder with smoke, just so I can visualize this. I don't have a leak down tester. It's the best way I can figure out how to do this. Pull it full of smoke. It's at the top dead center. I've got my air compressor, and I'm gonna put it in here. With this cone attachment, I install the compressor here, and I'm gonna prime this up so that the smoke, you'll see where the smoke's coming out of it. Go, as you can see. That test is totally optional and only proved what I already knew from the compression test, just visualized it. Since I had cylinder 1 at top dead center, the engine shouldn't have let any smoke or air out of the cylinder bore. So now we know we've got bent valves. To repair bent valves, the engine's head has to come off, which is what we're going to do in this video. Okay, without further ado, we're gonna tear it apart. I do not show every step-by-step, bolt-by-bolt in this video. And honestly, there's another video by Not Enough Projects that I'll link in the description where he does a bit more of that. So this video plus that video, I bet you can figure everything out. Where I live, it's 100 degrees outside, so I have a fan going and some of the audio is hard to hear, so I apologize for that. I'll be switching between voiceover comments like these and then live camera audio as needed. This cover comes up. This has to come out so we can get this air box out of the way. This guy just gets pressed down here. You can see that button says press. Press it, the red tab will move down, and then the bottom one works similarly. And pry bars and stuff next to me, just because we're gonna need it. Yeah. So I'm gonna speed this up a little bit. Some of the parts where it's just me messing with it and trying to get stuff off, I'm just gonna speed up. But these wires weren't super hard to get out, just a little bit of wiggling. And then the airbox is gonna come out, but I'm not gonna worry about the hose until after I just pull the airbox just straight up. This mass airflow sensor has a yellow tab. You pull up on it, and that'll come out. Quick note, I'm not actually sure that is the mass airflow sensor, so sorry if I'm wrong. It's okay. This movement now. There we go. That was tough, but we got it. I really did just have to manhandle that. I'm sorry if you didn't get a good view of that. And as we continue, I just wanted to let you know what tools I'll be using. Basically, just a basic pick set is going to be mandatory, and some pry bars you can see sitting up there on my cowl up in the front. Honestly, those are just going to be so important for this. I have an electric ratchet and a drill, which just saves a ton of time later, but it's also not, of course, mandatory. As far as this airbox goes, you really do just got to wiggle it and manhandle it, and it'll come out eventually, and all is good. Okay, these are going to be 7mm. Just gotta get this tube off of here. Our intake is coming out. Zoom in here a little bit. We're gonna have to take a wiring harness off of this guy. These are my favorite way to get under this. You just get a pick underneath this, pull it up like that. Makes pulling these off considerably less damaging to your thumb, to be honest. So we're just gonna come through here. We're gonna undo these injectors, wires, and this will make us cleared up for getting the intake off. These ones come up pretty easy. I seem to just be able to grab these with my fingers, but we appreciate that. For me, hopefully your vehicle does the same. This will just come out of the way like that. Okay. Now this hose is going to have to come up out of the way so we can move the intake later. It's clamped down right now with one of these special clamps that we just love. And that's your daily dose of sarcasm. I'm no professional mechanic here. I'm just a guy. Without breaking nothing. Welcome to the wonderful world that is under the car. As you can see, we need to drain the coolant. So what I did here is you just get a hose. This hose is off of a siphon pump, a fluid pump actually. It just kind of fit perfect. And so we got that over that little nub. So you just get in here some way, somehow. And you just take this guy. You twist it counterclockwise. I'm gonna get in here with both hands. I think you get the idea. This is it in its open position. It spun about a full 360, a little more, before it pops out like that. Of course, I opened the lid. You can see it's coming down now. We're losing coolant there. I will say this, if you don't intend to reuse the coolant, you don't have to do this, but this coolant looks fabulous, as you can see. This fuel rail is gonna have to come on out. You can see these bolts up here. Want to quickly add here that you need to know where you're going to put all your bolts because there are going to be a lot of them. So my method is to put them back wherever they came out so that I just never forget where they went. But whatever method works for you, do that. But there's going to be a lot of them. Once you get the fuel rails bolts out, the fuel rail should just pop out. We don't get it out yet, but we'll want it loose for later once we're taking the intake off. It'll just slip right out of our way. Now, so also there is a bolt. There's a bolt for the fuel rail right in here. Just out of the way. You can see it right there. I unfortunately got hard in the way on this shot, and some of my other shots I kind of ruined it the same way, so I apologize, but I hope you can see where that bolt was. So this intake is going to prove to be a little bit more of a nuisance than I was originally intending it to be. I'm showing you underneath here, this black hose is going to have to come off, but honestly, it doesn't really move much until you just get the intake up and out. Now over here to the left, I'm going to show you this spot where there's another line for the water. Again, these has the single-use clamps sort of thing that you have to re-clamp, but it's tucked back there. I found that it was easiest to get out once we just get the intake all the way off. There are 6 bolts holding the intake on, and one of them you have to take the alternator off to get to, and I'll show you the bracket in a second. I believe there's a 6th bolt under here in this corner that I can't get to, as is. So I'm going to just go ahead and take the engine mounts off to get some room. We do need to take the engine mounts off anyways, so it's not that big a deal. To get this engine mount off, I think it'll be easiest if I can move this guy. I don't think I need it out all the way. Just kind of moved like this so that I can get access to this bolt here. Now, before you take these bolts off, you will need to jack up the bottom of the engine appropriately. I'm going to do that right now. As expected, this is really tight. I do have a jack under here. Just going to put light pressure on that. See, this front side's a 15 on this. Oh, very cool. I thought that was a nut. It's just part of the bracket for me. Very good. Looks like 15 mil again. A few more times here. I wasn't messing around. I'm just putting my weight into this. They come loose though. You can see the engine move a little bit. Everything's going according to plan. It should be free now to come out. This guy right here. And this guy right here. Hope that helps. So this is another hard one that's hard to see, but I'm gonna take this bracket support thing off. Alright, so unfortunately I have to take the alternator off. So in order to get the alternator off, there's a couple of brackets that are in the way. So I got this first bracket off. It's just a couple of 12 or 13 millimeter bolts that hold that bracket in place with a deep socket. You'll be able to get that off no problem. And then the alternator comes out. There are 2 bolts on the bottom and 1 on the side that you'll have to go for. This is what that bracket looks like. Again, those 4 bolts on the left side of that thing you cannot get without taking the alternator out. And honestly, that 5th one isn't much better. I don't know what this bracket did, and so I'm not sure I'm going to put it back just for the sake of the next guy who's got to take this intake off, if ever. It's just, I didn't see what it did and I didn't understand it, and it was just a nightmare to get to. So unfortunately, this was what I had to do to get that last bolt out for the intake. I hope you don't have to take the alternator out. But in case you do, just so you know, those are T40 bits on that. And then the nut is a 10 millimeter or 12 millimeter. All right, so there are 6 bolts holding this in. We got those out. So now we should be free to just get this guy. There is one more coolant line that is about to hold me up on this, and so I'm about to take that off, just so you know it's over there on the left. Ow. Plug on the throttle body. There we go. I'm going to slide this hose back through there so we don't take it off again down there. And then we need to get this fuel rail out of the way. Nice and easy. So I'm going to show you guys where the bolt holes are for you. Get these all in frame. So I'm looking at it upside down. It goes on the engine like that. As you can see, there's 3 on the bottom and 3 on the top. They're kind of offset. So now we're going to continue with the disassembly of the valve cover. Once again, using my pick to just take off these solenoids. Once again, notice that I'm using my pick to get under the little clamp on these and pull them out. Sorry again, my arm's in the way on this, but it's just the same as all the other clips, just in a different position. You know how it goes. So I just scoot that coolant hose off to the side, and then I just start pulling them up. I do already have some of my coils out, and that's because I was doing the compression check earlier, and so some of them are already out. So you won't see me take every single bolt out as I continue. You can keep track of these so you don't mix them up, but if they all work, it doesn't really matter too much. So I think I'm just going to lay them in order, how I take them out, and they'll probably go back in the same way as they came out. There were 2 ground wires on this harness that I also had to take out. Just going to leave the bolt with them. For the wiring harness, ground, another ground here. I have a ton of debris on the top of the valve cover, and I think I want to blow it all off before I open it up. So I'm going to get my compressor up. We're just going to zip all of the bolts off until something happens. Basically, that's my conclusion. There is probably a correct way to loosen these bolts. I started in the middle and then I kind of thought, maybe I should start from the outside and go in. And so I kind of switched on it, but do whatever you feel right. I'm sure it'll be okay either way. It's probably not that. I don't even know how many. A lot. That's how many. This is a part of this where you really would enjoy having an electric ratchet or a drill, because these bolts, there are many, and doing this manually would definitely take a while. It just speeds up the process all around. Again, not mandatory, but man, was it nice to just be able to zip those off in a second. There's always one or two that you just don't see until you're trying to take it off. Without taking off the belt, we will not be able to get this off yet. You do it two ways. One is you can just do the correct thing and change the tensioner on it. Like, see this? When I did the timing, I didn't tighten the tensioner all the way, I don't think. I didn't do it correctly, clearly. So I think I might be able to just slide this off of here. You can just cut it if you have a new one, which I do, and I'm going to end up doing all the timing and stuff. I'm going to redo all this on this side of the engine. But if you want to save the belt, there you go. You can save the belt. Alright, I think it's ready to go. We just need to take these out. Wow. Can't even hold anymore. I'm gonna want a baggie for this. Alright, I tried counting them. I think I'm upwards of 45. I just put them in a baggie so I wouldn't lose them, but those are... It's just not really vibing. There's some creakles and cracks. Now for prying this valve cover off, it is a little bit tricky just because the pry points aren't very good, and so you're going to need to be pretty precarious about not to scratching the surfaces of it. I tried my best. I don't know how well I did. I think I might have scratched one of the corners a little, so hopefully you'll do better than I did, but I think it'll be okay as far as sealing it up in the future goes. Everything should be fine. So just pry it up, wiggle it, make some room, do it again, and keep wiggling until what happened to me is it kind of popped open, and you'll see that just right now. Oh, hope I didn't break nothing. She came free. Seems like it's stuck on the back side. I wanted to show you the struggle a little bit here, and so I did not intentionally cut. I intentionally did not cut this. I just sped it up for you. Again, it's a bit of a struggle. You're just going to wiggle it and pry it and wiggle it and pry it. And I was struggling mostly on the back side. It seemed like it was stuck more on the back than on the front. And so just wiggling and prying was pretty much just how it went. And eventually it finally came loose. I think also part of the issue is there's really no way to pry on the back side because of how close it is to the firewall. And so I think that was part of the problem. You can see I'm trying to get it back there. I just couldn't find a good spot to do it. Alright, got it popped up. Kind of just pried on it. I used this middle part, I put a rag in here so I wouldn't scratch it, and I kind of used that as leverage, and I just went back and forth between the two sides until eventually it came loose. Now we're gonna have the fun challenge of getting this out of here. With or without the cams is fine. I imagine without it's gonna be easier, but let's see about that. That cam is coming with us, I guess. Try not to drop that. Definitely some hot marks on this guy. See if it'll focus for us. Not super sure about that. Definitely not great. We're gonna come over here to the transmission side of the engine. We've got a couple of plugs and such that we need to remove. There we go. Seem to do it pushing down with my pry tool, just pushing down really hard on that. Seem to get it to open up wide enough for it to come out. Okay, and then we have an 8mm bolt holding the fuel rail down onto the head that we need to get off. And it's almost time for the head, but there's just a couple more things after this bolt for the fuel rail. We've also got the heat shield on the back and then the exhaust manifold. Right down there. That's our first 10 mil. And then there's going to be a couple more that I can't even see that we'll get off as well. Springy. Alright, there's one more spring guy over here. There she blows. It's best to come out that way first, and the rest just sort of follows. It's just to show you. 3 bolts on top. Seems like the springs were on these two, and there's one there, and one in that corner. And that went on back here like that. Take a while. I think you know how to do this on your own, so we'll see in a second. Alrighty. I loosened up all 10 of the bolts back there. Some of the studs came off, some of them didn't. That's how it goes. We're just gonna move on. I think I can't quite get a way to pry the exhaust manifold off of the back yet. So we're just gonna come down here because I think I'm gonna take the head off, but I think I wanna move all this stuff out of the way just to make it easier for us in a second. And it'll just be better. So originally I tried to get the timing cover off. This is a 10mm bolt that was holding the timing cover on. It was underneath that bracket, but I'm gonna go ahead and get this bracket off the head. It's for the engine mount. It doesn't really need to get taken off, but it'll be better without it. And so here we are taking it off. It's just 3 13mm bolts that are all very tight. I could get my electric ratchet on some of them, but then others I couldn't, and so I got my cheater bar out with my 3/8 inch drive ratchet to get the other ones off. With all this being said, I'm about to struggle for a while to get the timing cover off out of the way, because as you'll see in a second after I take this bracket off, there's going to be a coolant hose that we'll need to kind of get detached from the head. And so the timing cover is kind of madly in the way, and so the only way to get it off is to kind of pry the timing cover away or take it off. And I couldn't figure out how to take it off, so I just ended up prying it. I might have broken it, but it doesn't matter because it's broken anyways on mine, so I'm probably going to end up replacing it regardless. So alright, here's this guy. These 3 bolts that I just took out were right in here. Sits up on the engine like that. This is for the engine mounts, so it's a pretty hefty piece of metal. So here I am struggling. I just fast forwarded through this. I ended up prying the timing cover away from this hose. It's a pretty clever design, honestly. It's very sleek, very small, very compact, but not easy to work on. I imagine there is a way to get that plastic inner part of that timing cover off. I couldn't figure it out because the only bolts I could see were ones for the water pump, and I wasn't ready to do all that yet. I will end up doing that with the head off, most likely, because that'll be the easiest time to do it. but right now was not the time. So I just struggled. I ended up just prying on it again. It was already broken, and so I'm going to replace it regardless. And I was able to sneak it out that way.
Something stopped. I don't know what it was, but yeah, it's 14. My brake bar also isn't very long, so that doesn't help none. To wear a guy out. So the exhaust manifold is still attached, but I couldn't get a good pry on it, but it's loose. There's no nuts left in it or anything.
All right, now the head can come up. I just started wiggling it, prying on each of the corners, again trying not to scratch any of the mating surfaces best I can, and I got my wife to come and help me lift it up. It'll be easier with two people, especially because the exhaust manifold is still somewhat attached to the back, and quite honestly that was what we were fighting most of the time. Also double check to make sure you didn't leave any bolts inside, because that is what I did, and that definitely held us up and made it much more difficult to pull out. Just them sitting in there will stop the progress of you pulling it out. So make sure that they're not left in there, all 10 of them.
They're already loose. I think it'd be better if I took them out. Nice.
I tried to pry the exhaust manifold off the back of the head here, but it didn't really work. What worked best was just pulling it up at an angle and yanking her off the exhaust manifold, for lack of a better term.
Oh yeah, pull on that side. All right, folks, here it is. Just so you know, before you flip the head over, these guys are gonna they'll fall out. And so I went ahead and labeled them. This is kind of my method. I don't actually know if you need to, I just did it because I heard someone say you had to. So this is cylinder 1, exhaust A meaning it's closer to the front of the engine, and then B is further away, and then it just follows that pattern through the rest for the exhaust side, and then the intake side is whatever number cylinder I. So that's 2IB. And my handwriting's not good, but it's good enough to work for me. The cylinders will show in a second, but they are very badly damaged. You can see the valves. It's almost like they got cleaned right here on the tips of them. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, you can see that, the light coming through.
Nice.
That's not supposed to do that.
Nope. That's number 1. As you can see, the intake side got real good. Pretty obvious indications that the valves contacted the piston. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to realize that it's not supposed to look like that. And if you just show the other ones, they all look the same. This needs to get rebuilt. That's that.